How is it that the White House didn't have any idea of this until the day after the election and the Congress a few days later?
The legislative and executive branches of investigations. You know, it is simply a fact that the White House was not aware of the situation regarding General Patraeus until Wednesday.
At the request of the Secretary of Defense, the President has put on hold the nomination of General Allen as SACEUR, that's the head of the European Command, pending the investigation of General Allen's conduct by the Department of Defense IG. In San Diego, syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer, who appears he's at the San Diego Aquarium. I'm not sure where he is. Is that where you are?
I'm in the Shark Tank, so I have to talk very quickly.
Let's start with you, Charles. What about this and this story? I mean, we've been talking about it for a couple of days. Your take?
I think the really shocking news today was that General Patraeus thought and hoped he could keep his job. He thought that it might and would be kept secret, and then he could stay in his position. I think what that tells us is really important. It meant that he understood that the FBI obviously knew what was going on. He was hoping that those administration officials would not disclose what had happened, and therefore hoping that he would keep his job. And that meant that he understood that his job, his reputation, his legacy, his whole celebrated life was in the hands of the administration, and he expected they would protect him by keeping it quiet. And that brings us to the ultimate issue, and that is his testimony on September 13. That's the thing that connects the two scandals, and that's the only thing that makes the sex scandal relevant. Otherwise, it would be an exercise in sensationalism and voyeurism and nothing else. The reason it's important is here's a man who knows the administration holds his fate in his hands, and he gives testimony completely at variance with what the Secretary of Defense had said the day before, at variance with what he'd heard from his station chief in Tripoli, and with everything that we had heard. Was he influenced by the fact that he knew his fate was held by people in the administration at that time? But of course it was being held over Patraeus' head, and the sword was lowered on Election Day. You don't have to be a cynic to see that as the ultimate in cynicism. As long as they needed him to give the administration line, to quote Bill, everybody was silent. And as soon as the election's over, as soon as he can be dispensed with, the sword drops and he's destroyed. I mean, can you imagine what it's like to be under that pressure? And to think it didn't distort or at least in some way unconsciously influence his testimony? That's hard to believe.
It is up to Congress to make decisions about who is called to testify. But the President is confident that Acting Director Morell is fully informed and capable of representing the CIA in a hearing about the incidents in Benghazi.
And I think that General Patraeus could add significantly to our understanding. He was the man in charge at the time. We need to hear from him.
I believe he will. I think he's a responsible person, and I believe he will come. And so we are going to try to set that up today.
I want to remind people that Broadwell gives this statement in Denver, October 26th.
Now, I don't know if a lot of you have heard this, but the CIA annex had actually had taken a couple of Libyan militia members prisoner, and they think that the attack on the consulate was an effort to try to get these prisoners back. So that's still being vetted. The challenging thing for General Patraeus is that in his new position, he's not allowed to communicate with the press. So he's known all of this. They had correspondence with the CIA station chief in Libya. Within 24 hours, they kind of knew what was happening.
Now, Catherine Herridge confirms today that October 27th, she is with General Patraeus, Director Patraeus, at a black tie affair, an intelligence black tie dinner, talking with him, talking about a possible second and third book, and not feeling down, describing people there, describe her as kind of energized and not down about anything. Charles, what about all of this and the fact that perhaps David Patraeus really thought he was going to stay on, even despite the FBI looking into all of this.
Well, that makes the administration behavior completely inexplicable. Because during the months when they were looking into this, thinking there might have been a breach of security or a blackmail of the man who holds all our secrets, when it really was a national security risk, nobody says anything. Congress isn't even informed. He isn't suspended temporarily or anything. And then at the very end, when they conclude that it was nothing to do with national security, there were no breaches or dangers, and the danger is over, and obviously Patraeus believes that he's in the clear, they drop the sword, they get rid of him, and they reveal the story that disgraces him. That makes no sense at all.
This has been a Sunfish production.